Welcome to my corner of the internet. I'm the house hacker, and today I want to talk to you about overemployment. Now, this is a new concept that I actually just learned about today. A friend of mine sent me this website, I'm going to link the website in the description below, and it is a fascinating concept, and I just had to share it after diving into it today. So, the gist of what overemployment is when one person works two full-time jobs at the same time. And these are remote work positions. So being a coder for one company and then a coder for another company at the same time, writing code for them. Not so much freelance, but actual full-time employment. And I'm gonna have to be honest, I have mixed feelings about this, and I'm gonna kind of share my perspective as an individual who advocates for achieving financial independence and focusing on the development of your own career, but at the same time, from the perspective of when I was managing people and what my insights are from a managerial perspective as well. So, the first thing I'd like to dive into is productive hours in a workday. This is kind of the foundation of discussing the pros and cons of this, is kind of understanding that there have been multiple studies that have found that on average, people work 3 productive hours a day. And there's a lot of things that affect this, from the fact that it takes time to get in the zone of actually focusing on something. So any distraction can be a major hindrance um, to unnecessary meetings, um, time wasted at the coffee machine or in the break room, conversations that derail from work-related topics to non-work-related topics, and just other top things that take away from the workday. Now I'm going to link two studies that kind of cover this. One is conducted by Workfront, and the other one is by VoucherCloud. So take a look at those, and they find like slight variation, but generally everybody seems to land on the 3 hours a day average. So when you approach things from the perspective of you're only really working 3 hours a day, and you're putting in 100% 3 hour in those 3 hours to one company, and then 100% of those 3 hours, that means you can theoretically perform at average or even above average, depending on how good you are, capacity compared to your peers at both companies while working a 6 hour day. Now, what makes it really difficult is maintaining your focus to it. And I understand that can be a little challenging. On the other hand, telework that is possible for someone to finagle a dual full-time position, two different companies, that tends to be knowledge work. And with knowledge work, a lot of the work that is being done is up in your head. And so you could be driving home from work and you're still working because you're still thinking about it, but those are not hours billed. So that's kind of the thing that makes knowledge work such a weird space, because there's so much work that goes on in your head that's not really documented and counted and compensated. And I would be concerned with someone's ability to balance that if they have two different projects, and how is their mind focusing on each one, and in their free time, like when they're thinking. I understand that that time is not compensated, so a company shouldn't expect it, but I would expect that that somehow will affect their performance in the hours that they are working, because they're spending less time thinking about it in their free time compared to their peers. Now, I'd like to tell you a story about when I was a manager. We had a team that was remotely located away from our main team that was working on two totally separate projects. One of the projects was on my team's project, and the other one was on a totally different team that I had no purview over. And depending on the month or week, we would fluctuate how many hours they could bill to each project. Now, in the software development world, for those of you who don't know, we assign per person a velocity for how much they could complete. And this is kind of an estimation that is refined and perfected over time to assess how productive can your team actually be, so that when you make commitments to the customer, you can give pretty accurate assessments. And we began noticing that this team just was not performing to the velocity that we were expecting. If we were saying they were going to dedicate 20 hours to our project and 20 hours to the other project, all we need to do is take their velocity and cut it in half, because they're only dedicating half of their time. And we found they were just the tasks that we were giving them, that we were expecting to be completed within that time frame, that velocity should cover, they were just not meeting the mark. And so after we dug in deep, we found that there was influence at their local site that shifted them not evenly. So they were getting funding from two different locations, and they were not balancing it the same way that the funding was coming in. And so it created a whole mess of things. And even though this was all internal to the same company, I feel like there's some important lessons to be learned here. So if you're able to maintain an on average or above average performance at your position, then I don't personally see a problem with you working a side job or having two full-time jobs. You just need to make sure you check the laws in your local area. If you're in an at-will state, you can probably get away with it. This is not legal advice, but just make sure you check to make sure that's above board and it's not in some sort of employee legal contract that would forbid you from doing it. And make sure that you are performing at the level that your employer is expecting. Now, another thing that I found when I was looking through this website, the Overemployment website, is they did talk about not sharing with your employers that you have another job. And to be honest, I kind of agree. And the reality is, once you share it, you're going to develop a perception in their minds that your mind is not totally focused on this job, and there's other major distractions, not just a distraction, but a major distraction out there that can take you away from. So even if the company is okay with it, anytime something doesn't go right, doesn't go smoothly, it doesn't, happen as quickly as they would expect it to, they're going to immediately blame it on you having this secondary job. If your performance slacks and they do pull you aside because you are working a secondary job and you can't seem to pull your performance up while working that job, then you really shouldn't be doing it. But it sounds like there's people who are actually making this work. And for those people, I have to say, I'm genuinely envious. That is a phenomenal setup to have. I think that if you're doing it successfully, then good on you. I won't be able to do it now because I'm in a managerial role, and I genuinely believe that one of the most important jobs a manager has is to make sure that their team is not stuck in pointless meetings, which means I'm going to be stuck in pointless meetings, and it's miserable. But that's part of the job, to protect your team from crap that takes them away from being productive. So I think that it's such an interesting topic. I'm going to put all the links in the description below. I'm going to cite those sources in the video as well. Let me know what you guys think. This is such a fascinating idea that people are able to juggle this, and I think it's pretty cool that we're getting to a point where we have such a competitive economy where people can just go out and compete with multiple companies so that if anything happens with one job, they've got another one, and it's phenomenal. I mean, I can imagine someone with a six-figure job and another six-figure job, and they're doing pretty well. So it's a really cool idea. So go ahead and leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Subscribe if you like it. Share with your friends. Hopefully we can get more attention for these videos. And go ahead and hit the like button. Let me know if you like it. So thank you guys for watching.